Ms. Conley, thank you for joining us tonight.
Glad to be here. Thank you guys for the invitation. How are you, Ms. Johnson?
I am well. How are you?
Wonderful.
So good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are live on Facebook, so I just want to let you know that. I'm going to first just kind of introduce myself and Future Builders, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
To those of you who are not familiar with Future Builders, my name is Dr. Ebony Conley. I'm the Executive Director of Future Builders, Inc. I want to thank you for tuning in to our first discussion within our Smoking and campaign. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Future Builders, Inc. and the purpose of the Smoking and campaign. Future Builders is a nonprofit organization. We're located in Southeast Pulaski County. We have been serving the community of Arkansas for over 30 years in different capacities. Currently, our focus is on providing education and awareness on health issues that disproportionately impact the Black and Brown communities. One of those issues is tobacco use. And our tobacco and program or campaign focuses on smoking and how it impacts disparate populations. Our first Smoking and event focuses on smoking and mental health. And to help us discuss this topic is our special guest, Siobhan Johnson. Once I introduce her, we will jump right into the discussion. Siobhan Johnson is a licensed medical social worker and a clinically certified criminal justice specialist who works for the Arkansas Department of Corrections. She has been an adjunct professor for a local HBCU teaching sociology and psychology, and has worked for over 20 years in mental health. She has worked in hospitals with a population of individuals who have been hospitalized for mental health concerns, with the youth doing school-based therapy, developmentally delayed, in correction facilities with death row inmates and others. She's worked with sexually abused and predators, veterans, couples in marriage and family counseling, and with those who abuse substances and are dealing with addiction. She is the co-founder of the first social work sorority and has a love and passion for helping people to better themselves. Thank you so much, Siobhan, for being on today. Thank you for always supporting Future Builders, and thank you for being here to kind of share your expertise with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Our Smoking and campaign is about looking at a few topics. As you know, our first is mental health. And these are not going to be very long discussions, but we definitely want to share information with the public and with our communities to let them know about smoking and mental health. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then you can just go from there.
Okay.
Our first question is, what are reasons why people would seek help from someone like you? And I mean someone that provides mental health services.
Okay. Well, there are a variety of reasons why people come to seek mental health services. Um, Commonly, usually people come to a therapist or a social worker, usually for stress related issues. A lot of people say they're having some anxiety or depression symptoms, and those can range from a variety of things. You start noticing that you may be having trouble sleeping. You have issues with um, finding joy or happiness in things that you once used to do. You might have liked to work out. Now you're skipping the gym. You might have liked to use usually went out with friends,
Mm-hmm.
or you did other things that you used to do, hobbies, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And now you no longer find joy.
Okay.
or you have issues with concentration, um, or you find yourself having trouble getting out of bed. You can
Right.
have lack of sleep, or you sleep all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
when you start finding issues with your health, when you start finding issues with, and others can also see issues too when they say, well, you seem not to be yourself lately.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to think that maybe there are some issues that are going on.
Right.
Also, there are other reasons. If you're having any difficulties within any trauma related issues, sometimes grief and loss, sometimes there could be medical issues. Sometimes people don't know it, but there could be issues within your health, within your body, that can cause things to look like they may be anxiety or depression. There can be issues with your blood work. You may have issues with your thyroid that look like symptoms of depression. And so there are a number of issues that we need to look at in order to rectify or talk about what we can do to make things better for you, or to possibly start treatment. Also, things like mental health concerns or illnesses like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, things that may be a chronic condition that we definitely need to start treatment and look at. So there are a lot of things that people come to a therapist to talk about and to seek treatment for.
Thank you. What leads people with mental health concern or mental illnesses um, to start smoking?
Well, like I was saying, when you talk about stress related issues, especially things that are going on right now with the pandemic, a lot of times when you're dealing with stress and anxiety, usually people can start smoking in order to try to relieve the tension or that stress, that issue. That is a way of coping. A lot of times people don't think that that's an escape, but it usually is.
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of times, and it's not just with smoking, it could be with a lot of other things as well. But a lot of times, if you think about it, think about maybe that person at work, that if it's a really busy day, a really stressful day, and you can hear them say, I need a cigarette, if
Mm-hmm.
they're a smoker. And they say, oh, handle this for me because I got to go outside just for 2 minutes. I need a smoke break.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see them, in the smoking section, if they have a smoking section, or outside, or in their car, because of the new laws. Sometimes they have to go to their cars, but they're lined up, taking a smoke break because of the stressful day, of the concerns or the pressures of that day. And so they feel they need to step away and release some of that pressure or the anxiety or the stress of that day. And they feel that smoking helps them escape that. And sometimes that's just not true. That's the body's um, dependency on that cigarette and that nicotine that they're getting at the time, that's telling them that's what they need.
Right.
And so, you think about a lot of the things that we're doing to try to relieve stress in order to cope with a lot of the things that we go through. Um, and it's not just smoking, it can be, someone said to me recently, they had to lose their COVID weight.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, even famous artist here recently wrote a song. I think it's Megan the Stallion, and it was like number one for a while. It's called Body,
Yeah.
because she said she had quarantine weight,
Okay.
and She was going to celebrate, though, the quarantine pounds because she was stuck at home and she ate. She said she was snacking all day because being at home, a lot of us tend to eat.
Mhm.
We became somewhat of an emotional eater. I'm one too. When you're at home, one of the things that we chose to do was we passed by the refrigerator
Mhm.
when we were stuck at home because of the pandemic and things were shut down, things were closed. A lot of us had to cook, a lot of us had to fend for ourselves, or we
Right.
chose to do maybe a lot of fast food restaurants that we normally didn't do. And so a lot of people may choose alcohol. A lot
Mhm.
of people choose a lot of different things to try to cope with the stress that we're feeling.
Mhm.
And that on top of, with the pandemic, and on top of whatever we have already that it may be going on, be it health issues, whatever your concerns are, that just compounds the stress. And without having nice healthy coping skills, we tend to use things that aren't necessarily very healthy or very good for us.
Okay. Yeah. So let me ask you this. How does smoking or any other addiction, right, impact one's health? I know you just mentioned that people think that they're coping and that, it's something that will help them, be able to get over the stress or get over whatever it is concerning them. But how do you believe addiction really impacts mental health, whether it's stress or anxiety or depression? What are your
Well,
thoughts on that?
as far as the impact, I think that if you're not, the impact is very great. I think a lot of times, if we aren't getting to the actual source of what is actually going on and finding appropriate ways to cope, then more than likely we're compacting and compounding that problem. We're just putting a band-aid on it. As people have said, you putting a band-aid on a gunshot wound.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to work. It may seem like it will, but it's not. And it will get worse and worse, and it's going to be a problem. So with people that are having issues with smoking, well, first, they're having issues with stress, anxiety, and depression, and trying to find ways of coping with it.
Mm-hmm.
If they choose smoking or any other unhealthy way of coping, it's going to be more harmful. It appears to be that it's working at the time. Sometimes, my mom used to say, easy come, easy go, because sometimes things that may seem a quick fix
Mm-hmm.
aren't always quality
Mm-hmm.
fixes. So things that seem to be okay, or let's just deal with it really quickly for right now, aren't always the best ways to really tackle the issue. So you really sometimes have to put in the work or figure out a different way. So if you start smoking, then you start developing other issues. For one, you're going to start, some people start, their bodies start making them think that this is what I need.
In order
And so
to,
that's
yeah.
right. That's when that addiction starts to happen. You start feeling like, okay, this is what I have to have.
Mm,
And before you know it, you have to have that cigarette before anything else, before taking your child to school, before calling that family member, before taking your car into the body shop to be fixed, before paying that bill. It's a choice between buying that extra carton of cigarettes, between paying a bill, paying my
mhm,
light, water, gas, paying
mhm,
something that I actually need to,
Mm-hmm.
actually having something that I don't actually need, but my
Yeah.
body is telling me I need it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when it becomes the addiction.
Right.
That's when it becomes harmful. And that's when you have to really, really assess that this is starting to be a problem. It's really starting to be a problem because now it's taking away time from work. Now it's taking away time from my friends, because sometimes there are people that may or may not want to hang around you when you
Yeah,
smoke.
because you're smoking. Mm-hmm.
Some people have a little bit of guilt. They feel embarrassed because they smell like smoke. um, some people find that they can't always smoke around certain people, because a lot of people won't date you because you smoke.
Mm-hmm.
They can't go to certain places because you can't smoke there. um, it becomes a hazard for them. It becomes a
Wow.
problem. It becomes an issue. And
Right.
then it becomes a question of, now I have to totally rearrange my life and my lifestyle and everything that I do because of this habit or this addiction that I have.
Which actually adds to the mental health concerns, right?
And I was just about to say, which
Yeah.
actually becomes more stressful.
Uh-huh.
It actually makes it even more stressful because now you have to worry about all of these other things,
Uh-huh.
whereas it just becomes too much. It becomes overwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
which makes you want to smoke more and more, and then you have
It's
to
a
smoke
cycle.
more, which
Mm-hmm.
is another issue. It becomes a cycle, exactly, a downward spiral into the abyss. It
Right.
becomes a cycle of, now I have to smoke more and more, because usually tobacco companies, of course, as we know, um, they make cigarettes addictive. They
Mm-hmm.
have chemicals in them, uh, that make them addictive, and they have all of this propaganda and advertisement to make it look cool and get teenagers and young people hooked on them early on from when
Yes.
we were in school. And so then it becomes addictive at an early age, and then it's even harder to get off of it.
Yeah.
So you doing it for years and years, so it makes it even harder to quit. Then you have all of these negative side effects when you try to quit, which makes it even more stressful. Um, so it becomes all of these cons one is having to deal with, which even adds even more stress and pressure.
Right.
So people just do what's easiest, they think.
Mm-hmm. That
They
makes
feel
sense.
it's easiest,
Right.
right? And then but it continues to just become harder and harder the longer you continue to smoke, you continue this behavior.
Well,
Not to mention, of course, possible cancer, the
mhm.
issues that you get from smoking. They put this little bitty warning on the label of the cigarette, from the FDA and everybody, this little bitty warning. And even, on commercials, they say it really, really fast at the end of the commercial.
That's true.
But these things are harmful, and these chemicals are harmful to you. And now you can see some of these commercials, they talk about the throat cancer and lung cancer, but these things are really harmful. And if you ever see someone that has cancer, they from smoking, they'll tell you that it's really something that they wish they would have stopped and try to quit one more time,
Yeah.
just one more time, in order to um, be able to stop smoking when they had the chance.
Well, I was reading that 1 in 4 individuals have some type of behavioral health condition, right? Um,
Right.
how most don't know it though. So
Right.
what would you suggest that a person do to kind of detect to get that detected to determine if they are struggling with a mental health issue? Like how do you know? And what would be the next step?
Well, I think that I am pro therapy. I think that there's a negative stigma about mental health and therapy. I think that, especially right now with this pandemic, I am so surprised that a lot of companies and organizations are not offering more counseling to their
Yes,
employees, because this pandemic has been so just traumatic for everyone,
yeah.
from our children to, I mean, everyone worldwide. I think that we all should definitely think about
Mm,
considering processing this of about what's really happening.
mm,
And so think about what you truly deal with on a daily basis. I
mhm,
think that sometimes people think if they are dealing with a lot, that you think you're weak if you ask for help. And
okay,
that's not true. A strong person
yeah,
deals with a lot and asks for help.
yeah,
Only the strong can admit that they are dealing with a lot, and they may need someone to help them think things through.
uh-huh,
Sometimes we may not need to just talk with friends or family or
mm.
even just our minister. I recently put a post up on Facebook that said I can have God and a therapist.
Right.
Because I can pray and I can definitely talk to a therapist, because there should be someone that I can just vent and say what I want to say, um, without judgment, too, just to be able to say, it is not okay that we're dealing with a pandemic, that my child is going to school, that, their teacher passed away from COVID, that the custodian passed away, or that the classrooms weren't cleaned, or that my son's barber passed away. It's not okay that my sorority sister has attended 7 funerals in the last 5 months.
Mhm.
Someone should be able to say and process those things. So
Yeah.
I want you to seriously do a list and just really think about what all you are dealing with as that coworker, at your job, as a mother, as a father, as a church member, whatever your duties are. Think about whatever your character, your roles, whatever you do on a day-to-day basis, because I don't think we really are thinking about that. And I want you to seriously take inventory of what all of your stressors are and how you go about dealing with it. And then I want you to make a list of how you choose to cope with it.
Mhm. I asked that question because, like you said, smokers tend to um, probably have things that they're trying to cope with and they don't even realize it. And so that's
Exactly.
one of the reasons I asked that question. I have a couple of questions here in the chat.
Okay.
Now, one is about about mental health institutions. And when I think of mental health institutions, I think of places like Bridgeway,
Right.
other hospitals. I think about just therapy locations or centers,
Mhm.
counseling centers. and
Mhm.
things like that. And the question here is, what can we do as a tobacco prevention program to get more health institutions to become smoke free? Now, my answer to that would be most places are smoke free because of the current law, right?
Right.
But one of the places, and I wouldn't say that this is a mental health institution, but one of the places that I'm not sure is a smoke free environment is the correction facilities.
Right.
Are they?
Well, they are. They are smoke free. Of
Okay.
course, um, they are smoke free. But of course, with anything else, I will be honest, they do sometimes, inmates do find ways of finding cigarettes and things to
But
smuggle illegally
how can
into
they
the
smoke them? I mean,
facility.
smoke goes everywhere. It gets smoky.
Yeah,
Okay. So they are smoke-free facilities.
they are.
Okay.
They are. They are. They used to sell cigarettes and things on commissary and things, but when they changed the law, they became smoke free.
Okay.
So they
I
no
didn't.
longer, yes, the ADC is smoke free.
Okay.
They can no longer smoke. And so when they are found to have cigarettes or any type of tobacco that is against the rules, and they are usually found and held accountable. They get disciplinaries, there are charges, they do get locked up, they lose privileges, etc.
Okay. Here's another question for you. Um, if you were speaking with someone that had mental health concerns, right? What would you
Hmm.
share with them to help them to consider quitting? What can they do to quit? And I believe that you kind of touched on that a few minutes ago, right? When you were saying make a list of those things that are, that may be weighing you down, and then kind of look at the way you're coping with it and all of that. But how could someone quit? And then what would you recommend as a replacement for smoking?
Okay. Recommend to quit. One, I would twofold. One, if it's possible, there may be medications and things to help
Mhm.
quit. Of course, some people have tried the patch, some people have tried medications, different things that can help people if they want to wean themselves off slowly. If they, because sometimes if you smoke for years and years, it's not going to be um, recommended that you do it cold turkey. Some people try and they have done it. And if you think you can, that's great. But I would recommend that you see a doctor,
Mhm.
your primary care physician. Um, I would say, definitely go and see if you can seek help in this endeavor because it may be more successful that way.
Mhm.
And it would help with relapse as well because sometimes we have to try and then we might fall back, and it's kind of like a diet. You may have some cheat days, so it may be more successful if you have help. That's just determined by the person. So if you want to try, and sometimes depending on the person, um, and financial situation and
Yeah.
insurance benefits and things of that nature. Um, Also, there may be some funding out there that or research funding because they always have sometimes some research um, groups that sometimes will put you in a research study that you may
Oh
be able
yeah.
to do it for free.
Mm.
So it's always good to look into that. Another way is you can try and wean yourself off yourself. Sometimes you can set realistic goals.
Mhm.
So instead of smoking 3 packs a day,
Mhm.
you want to try to gradually wean yourself off. You want to make sure that you're going less and less and less, to, your specifications, what's best for you.
Mhm.
So instead of, you know, smoking, after, breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snack or whatnot, maybe take away after you eat dinner or after you eat lunch, so try to wean yourself off and smoke less and less, until, but you want to replace it with something.
Okay. Mhm.
So, instead of smoking, you may want to replace that with something positive. You want to replace it with something you like to do, and to each its own. The young lady that I spoke of, that she has had those several deaths, and the way that she loves to cope is she does yoga.
Okay. Yeah.
And I mentioned yoga, and I say that because that's something that is not necessarily of financial strain, because you can, look at something on YouTube, something that you can kind of download and look at on your phone, but or some type of exercise, maybe go for a walk, um, do something else that may help you. Now, if you're like me, I need a little bit more motivation. I may not be able to do do yoga at first. I may have to do chair yoga.
Mhm.
So before I get full downward dog, so I may need to do something with music.
Yeah.
So I used to do a music group with my patients at the hospital. I worked at adult site for almost 9 years, and I did about 2 music groups a day. Um, and music is international. It is a mood changer. I'm telling you, there is a song for everything. So, something that is really, really good at helping with stress and anxiety. It's very calming. I would use music, especially if it's something very stressful or intense going on. It could help calm me down instead of you smoking.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay. I have a couple more questions here in the chat. We had talked about
Okay.
the institutional environment, right? Where you currently
Hmm.
work. Um,
Hmm.
Now, of course, they're not supposed to smoke, right? But if they are, or they're doing anything else that they should not be, um, as a therapist, what would you recommend as a replacement for them in an institutional environment? Because they're going to be limited to how much they can do, right? And their alternatives to smoking, or their alternatives to doing things that are not healthy for them.
Okay. I recommend also to a lot of my guys that are on my caseload, not only the music, but I also recommend going to yard. Um, when they have the opportunity to go to yard, if it's available to them, go to yard. I also recommend that they get involved if they're able to, depending on their privileges and their class. If they're able to, get involved in some type of program. A lot of times, just sitting in the barracks, sitting in doing nothing, that leads to sometimes getting in trouble, and getting involved in things that they shouldn't. So, for the guys that are in the institutions and in ADC, I definitely try to get them involved in doing other things. Shorter College has a great program, the Second Chance Pell, and I definitely encourage them to get an education.
Okay.
That's a really great program. If they don't have their GED, I recommend that they try to do VOTEC. If they have any recommendations from when they came in, because every inmate when they come in, they go through intake, and they get recommendations of programs and things that they should complete that the parole board will look at when it comes time for them to go up for parole. And so there are several programs things that they may need in order to help them not recidivate. So if there is substance abuse history or issues in their jacket, I recommend that they start looking into doing that or going into that program.
I
There
have,
are all,
no,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry,
No, go ahead. Go ahead and
I
finish
was
that.
gonna say, okay, also mental health, the where I work and
Mhm.
what I do, I also have a lot of, we have about 6 classes that we recommend and that we offer. We have things like substance abuse education, communication skills, anger management, um, parenting skills. We have, I know I'm missing some. We have stress management. That's a big one. And we have another one. We have another one that I'm missing that I'll be thinking about later on and say, aha, that's it. But we
Right.
yeah, when this is over, I'll remember. But we have about 6 classes that we recommend, and if you're at my actual institution, I also have a variety of self-help material that I give to my guys, ranging from grief management, um, from trauma, from PTSD, from substance abuse education, from tobacco use, discrimination management, things of all shapes, sizes, problems, concerns, all types of issues. There are a lot of things. Um, we have several programs, Pathways to Freedom. We have a lot of programs. And if you are able to get involved with those programs, that
Right.
is a big help for you to get involved, better yourself, and it'll be better for you to
Hmm.
be successful when you re-enter into society, but also it'll keep you away from just being idle and just sitting there pondering, doing things that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. So I have some more questions here in the chat. They're trying to get you. Um,
Okay,
I'm
that's
not gonna
great.
I'm not gonna be able to ask all of them, but I have one here that is it's a really good one. It says I've
Okay.
heard that individuals who are recovering from addiction issues should not stop smoking tobacco because it may lead to a relapse. And that's funny because I've worked in rehabilitation centers through our tobacco prevention and cessation program with future builders. And one of the things that you kind of hear people talk about, we're talking to them about the importance of stopping tobacco as well. They're in there because possibly because of other addictions, but they don't necessarily look at their smoking tobacco also as an addiction. And so they're like, well, we got to have something. That's one of the things that I hear all the time. We have to have something. If I am trying to stop doing all of these other things, then can I at least have my cigarettes? So they don't look at that as a dangerous drug in their system. So the question is, what is your opinion on that? Do you feel like people who are trying to quit other substances may relapse if they also try to quit smoking tobacco?
No, I don't think that they will relapse. I think that sometimes um, you can change one addiction for another. And when you truly are trying to when you have addictive tendencies and you have addictive behaviors like that, sometimes you have to be very careful, because that's why they have a lot of even in AA and different residential facilities, they have a lot of strict guidelines when you are really trying to quit, when you're really trying to really walk the straight and narrow, even with having a relationship,
Yeah.
because you can interchange one addictive um, behavior for another one addiction for another. And even though it's not alcohol, it'll turn into smoking or a relationship or sex or shopping or something else. And so you really have to, and that's what I mean, you have to identify the initial trauma. If
Mhm.
you get to the root of what the issue is. And that is what I mean. If you really, really want to fix it, you are looking for the quality of treatment. If you really want to talk about what you're trying to cope with, what you're trying to escape from, what void you're trying to fill with these addictions, what is the issue really?
Right. So it's not
Then,
about, it's about the addiction, period. Being
exactly.
addicted to anything because it's a behavior, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
Ex-
Hmm.
Exactly. So what void are you trying to fill
Yeah.
with that addiction?
Right. And it could be
Because
something as simple as coping, like you say, with stress. It could just be a stress reliever. And you just have issues
right.
with coping with that stress on a daily basis. And so this is something that helps you get rid of it. Do you think that smoking do okay, so we know that smoking is an addiction. What's the difference, do you think, between addiction and habit?
Well, the addiction becomes unhealthy. A bad habit I can quit a habit in like 20 days, because I can change that habit. If I got a habit of going to work late, I
Mm-hmm.
can change that habit if I set my clock earlier
Mm-hmm.
and I do that for about a month or so. I can change that habit. If I want to start going to the gym, I can start a habit. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But an addiction becomes unhealthy when that addiction starts to take over my life.
Okay.
Like I said, it becomes everything. It becomes I'm late for work. I no longer can function. Now, some people are functional alcoholics, and that's a different realm. But it becomes that I have to drink in order to get to work.
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I got to drink at work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have. It becomes an addiction when I'm. I you you got your lights off, or you will steal from your mom. You can't pay your bills. It becomes an addiction because it's unhealthy. It has taken over to the point to where you feel you have to have it, and you
Mm-hmm.
will sacrifice
Anything.
anything
Or just sacrifice, yeah, you'll sacrifice things you
or
don't need to
sacrifice
live
something
like
you need,
that. Mm-hmm.
or yes, something you need.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on with us this evening. We were only gonna be on for just a little bit, but now I have one more question here. And we talked about kind of having being a functioning addict, right? A functioning
Yes.
alcoholic, or you know, is there a such thing as and the key word, I guess, is functional. Is there a such thing as a functional smoker?
Um, I mean, yes, people can function with smoking. This is a legal drug per se. Um,
That's true.
you can function. Technically, you can have like before when we were saying, um, You can have friends. You can be friends with smokers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your family could be smokers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, no one can have an issue with you smoking. Um, Sometimes people will make excuses for your smoking. I mean, you know, there have been times people, you know, your family may say, well, you know, cousin so and so is gonna smoke, so but put the ashtray out for so and so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um or they'll even buy them for you.
Yeah.
Um
I haven't found that people that smoke cigarettes become ineffective, I guess.
right.
Or-
It
yeah.
doesn't it doesn't cloud their judgment. The only time that they have problems is when that I've noticed is when they have difficulty staying at work because they have to constantly run out.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed, even working in a hospital setting, is when you live or when you work in an environment where it's smoke free,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to find places to smoke. Like I've seen people actually go into the bathroom and smoke because they've got to have it then,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not able to take a break because they've already taken enough breaks,
Yeah.
and they've gotten in trouble for taking so many breaks. You know, technically at my facility, you can only go out so many times
Mm-hmm.
because we get searched every time we go in and out of our facility.
Right.
So you can only go out so many times. So people will find ways to try to bring in contraband, and if you get caught doing that, then you can lose your job. So who wants to lose a job because you bringing in cigarettes and a lighter?
Right.
But people do.
Mm-hmm.
So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's an addiction because you can't stop smoking long enough to work your 8 hour shift
Right.
or the last 4 hours of work. So you're sneaking in cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Well,
a problem.
I tell you what, I know that, this topic of mental health and smoking is so important because of so many things that you've talked about this evening, substance abuse and it changing one addiction for the other. Um, you know, Number one, it's not good for you, it's not healthy for you, but actually using smoking to cope with other things and not really getting the assistance that you may really need, not getting to the root of the problem. And I think that, like you said, during this era and pandemic, a lot of people have probably turned to cigarettes or turned to some other
Yeah,
form of something just to kind of cope with how they're feeling during the process instead of possibly getting help.
that's
So,
right.
I thank you for being on here tonight. We do have a few more questions, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if I can get this, um, hopefully everything is going really well on our live. What I'm going to do is put some questions in the live for you
Okay.
to see if you could possibly give us some answers there. And then that would
Okay.
kind of, yeah, that would be good for us to get some of the other questions answered. If you don't mind, working with us. Would you mind doing a session two of smoking and mental health if we decide
Oh,
to do
no
another session?
problem. Yes, I would.
Okay, good. Because I tell you, these questions are really coming. So, and mental health right now is huge. I mean, it's always huge, but it's
Yes,
definitely huge in the Black and Brown communities
yes,
because we do not seek enough assistance. Like you said, there's a huge stigma on getting help if you're having any kind of mental health concerns, and so we do turn to things that we should not.
that's
So, thank you. Our time is up, but I really appreciate you, Siobhan. And
thank you.
we will look at having another session